That's he raises bees and he does all queen bees and things. And the Iowa honey producers will be having a field day there, which is comprised of various lectures in the morning or afternoon. I'm not sure which right now. And then the other portion is inspection and looking at different hives. Like last year, they showed how to do the mite sampling. They showed how to do hive inspections, and they showed how to mark queens. They had everybody marking drones. So
is that something you're supposed to sign up for then? Like, can you just do it on their webpage?
yeah, you can do it on Iowa Honey Producers webpage, and there's information there. You can sign up in advance. Question was whether or not children would be admitted, and the question that they had that they're researching right now is what they're going to charge for a kid's meal, because there's a meal given out. So
oh,
I
awesome.
haven't answered yet for that. I sent you a list of books, by the way, too. On somebody asked what were good bee books. And, there's two that I would recommend, either one. The second one is really interesting. It says Western Canada, but it's applicable here, and it's well done. It's done by the Canadian Forestry Service. And then someone had pictures for me, didn't you?
Yes, that was me.
Yes, I know. So here's my advice on placement. Close, they have to be able to conveniently get them water. Okay. I noticed the trees that you said east to west, right? Was that, or east to west? I think you said the trees.
Yeah, the evergreen grove that's in the picture runs east to west.
So you really want the hive facing the morning sun, but yet if you can have shade in the afternoon, because in July and August in the afternoon by 3-4 o'clock it gets to be really hot. So if they can get shade in the afternoon, maybe you could put them between the trees, stagger them between the trees. That would be good. A windbreak is good. It's really necessary for winter. So for winter, they have to figure out something to do. And you could wrap them real well or put foam around them or something that would act as a really good windbreak in winter. That's the key because of the cooling. If you have wind, if they're generating heat, obviously it's going to leak through the wall of the hive. And if you have wind going past it, the wind's going to not evaporate. It's going to reduce that heat very quickly, right? Because of airflow. Because it's going to transfer the heat very quickly. So they have to keep generating more and more heat. So that's why you really want something to block that wind.
So you're thinking of those two locations that'd be better to put it by the trees rather than out in the open?
Yes.
Okay.
But the most important thing is wherever it's most convenient for you to get them water on a daily basis. If you have to walk 100 yards or 200 yards, that isn't convenient, and you'll tend not to do it. It's just human nature. If there's something convenient, because they need water, even now. I have bees in my bird bath. That's my advice there.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Angela, are you on?
I am. Do
Okay,
they need fresh water every day, like through the winter? I mean.
No.
Okay.
They need fresh water, well, starting now through October, probably, parts of whenever it's warm. Once it gets to be below 50, they don't go outside of their hive.
Okay.
But what happens when it gets hot, they use the water to cool the hive. They evaporate the water. So you'll see in July and August, you can't believe how much water they can suck up, trying to keep the hive cool, just from all the body heat from all those bees in there, I guess.
Oh, sure.
So tonight was going to be just an answer, question and answer session. If there's other slides that you want to see, I can bring those up. Really appreciate. I hope you got something out of this where you can become good beekeepers.
So I looked at my beehive a little closer that I got, and it says it was because you had mentioned putting beeswax on the
Right.
frame, but it says it's already treated with beeswax. Were you thinking I should treat it more, or just not knowing that it already been treated?
No, I buy mine treated, and they put a very, very thin layer on it and call it coated. You have plastic frames, I take it, right?
Yeah.
My recommendation is a brand new hive, right? You don't have existing comb, right? I would buy. How many frames did you get?
I think there's 10, and I got 2 supers in 1 box, and then I'm getting a box from Ebert that will have the already comb in it.
Right. Okay. That's really good for them. I would buy a pound, or maybe 2 pounds of beeswax, and if you have an old paintbrush you don't mind using, that hasn't been used for, I say old. I always buy these cheap, throwaway ones from Lowe's that cost $1.50 or whatever, and then you can paint them with the beeswax. I would recommend that because they'll pull that comb out much faster, and they'll be stronger sooner.
Where do you get beeswax like that? Just at a...
Well, you can get it from Man Lake, from any of the producers. Man Lake sells it. I'm not sure. Somebody's getting their stuff from TSC. Is that right? Was that somebody here that told me that? Let me check for something. There's a place in Iowa City. Is it TSC? Which is Tractor Supply. No, that one is in Cedar Rapids. What's the place down by Costco?
Tyson's.
Tyson's. Thank you.
Yeah. But we're really not that far from the Tractor Supply on the south side of Cedar Rapids there.
Yeah, I don't know if they have beeswax, but
Oh, okay.
Tyson sells bee stuff. I know that.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like they sell it. I would see it.
I'm sure I can Google it and figure it out.
Yeah, they have a pound of bees. Oh, that's a mole. Wow. Wow. A pound strip is selling for like $13 right now, and it says it's sold out. Wow. And so I'm not sure. You Google it and see who might have beeswax. If you get really desperate, give me a call and I'll have my wife check, because she secretes beeswax in different places sometimes, and she's not right here right now, but she may have some I can just give to you. You need about a pound or so just to get them started on a few more frames, because they're going to have the 4 or 5 frames that you have that will be pulled out, and then they'll have to work really hard to pull other ones out before she can lay more eggs and things. And if you can help them do that, it just speeds up the whole process of the hive getting bigger quicker.
I've actually purchased beeswax from Amazon before too.
Amazon?
Uh-huh.
Wow. And they even deliver.
Yeah. Not the best place to buy from, but like if you're in a pinch, yeah, I know that they have it.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. I just checked.
Does it matter how soon you set your hive outside? Like, I'm gonna get it painted this week, but does it matter if it sits outside, right? Like with the bees, not like it if it went outside the same day they arrived, or like, is it good to have it in the elements for?
No, it really doesn't make a difference as long as the paint's been dry for a few days, you know, because the paint has an odor to it, right? Don't paint the inside, obviously. Yeah, okay, so Amazon has lots of beeswax for sale from lots of different people. And if you're Amazon Prime, of course, you get free delivery, and they have a whole bunch of ones that are Amazon Prime. You can make Jeff Bezos. You know how much he made last year himself? Just wild guess, because I just sat there with my mouth open. $17 billion was his increase in net wealth.
Who is this?
The owner of Amazon. $17 billion he made for himself last year over the COVID era. Isn't that, I mean, I just sat there and went, he did what? You know?
That is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and Amazon didn't pay any taxes last year either. Totally boggling. Anyway, different topic, but I highly recommend doing that. If you can't find beeswax, give me a call. I'm sure my wife can find something.
Yeah, we'll do. My friend Dave might have some too that I mentioned. So yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and you're getting just one hive or two?
I just have one this year.
Okay.
But all this talk of having 2 makes me want to get a second next year.
You should. And so like I said, the big thing is in August to start preparing them so they can get through the year. Not many people get through the year. I think somebody here said they've been doing it for 4 years, Lauren, and you haven't had a hive go through yet. So when it gets to be August, give me a call or an email. I've had really good luck getting my hives for winter, for whatever reason. But
Do you wrap them up every year?
every year, we do a mite treatment, and then after we do the mite treatment, we wrap them. I do oxalic acid vaporization, but if you only have a couple hives, you can do drip.
Yeah.
And then we wrap them and put extra sugar in, and don't look at them until January-ish, February-ish, you know, when it gets a little warm, a few warm days, and see if they still have enough sugar and go from there. My wife just checked. I wasn't here this weekend. I was in a fly ball tournament all day, both days. And so she went out and checked, and they all had sugar yet. So I'm happy because we got through the cold spell.
Well, and yeah, will they need more here because of, like you were saying, the wind, and then now rain possibly
Well,
coming?
it depends. They have sugar right now. They have enough. She said most of them have 50%. one has 25%. So I'll watch the weather. If the weather stays like today, things are starting to bloom early. I had 2 dandelions in the yard already. If you can believe that. I mean, that's just amazing. So they will get pollen and nectar from that. But of course, if it gets cold and we get a snowstorm, who knows, right? In the next couple of days. By the end of April, it's usually pretty nice. The mid part here, you're just not sure of yet. And we got through March, so, and they're all alive, so it'll be interesting.
So my bees are coming in at the end of April. I've made the mistake before because I've gotten them like the end of March. And I remember I put like the sugar water, but I put it right outside the hive because I didn't realize you should put it inside the hive. And so I actually killed my bees that time. But at the end of April, would you still recommend putting like a jar of sugar water inside?
No, by the end of April, I
should be fine.
believe it'll be, it's above 50, 55 degrees average. So that's fine by the end of
Okay.
April.
Okay, so I can just put the jar like out. And I mean, do you recommend ever, like, you know what I'm saying, when you put the jar outside in that little jar holder, like, is that worth doing?
The Boardman feeder, it's called.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, it has a little opening that slides into the hive.
Yeah,
The
and
bees
then it
can
like
go
holds-
underneath the.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could do that for a week or two. If there's a bloom, you're getting new bees. Now keep it up for a couple weeks because
Okay.
you have new bees.
Yeah.
And you don't want them all trying to forage for food right away.
Okay.
Because you're getting packages, right?
yeah,
But you have frames of honey already, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's a big plus. If you have frames of honey in there, you probably don't need to feed them because they'll
Okay.
go for the honey. All right. So I wouldn't even worry about feeding them.
Okay.
If you're brand new, then you have to feed them because they have so much work to do, and you
Okay.
don't want them all trying to forage. But if you have honey, now they'll eat the honey if they need it.
Because they'll take like the outer wax off and eat the honey, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they will eat the honey. In fact, at the bottom of your hive, when you clean them out in spring, you'll find all these crumbs. It's like a dusting of crumbs, and what it is all the caps off the cells
Oh.
from honey, where they chew them off, and that all drops to the bottom, and then they
Okay.
eat the honey.
Gotcha. Okay. Is it bad to throw to just have the supers on top like as extra space? Because does that if they know that they have that extra space, will they be less likely to do queen cells?
No. I'm assuming that you're using the honey supers are mediums, smaller.
Yeah, right. Like I have the big guys.
Yep.
And then the small.
Yeah. You should start out with one. And when they get it like 70% filled, you can put another one on. What happens if you put too many on and you just leave them, they have to guard that, and moths will get in. And so they have to spend time trying to guard it, and they don't have enough bees necessarily to guard it, so it becomes a problem. If you just stack honey supers on and empty ones, not necessarily good. But it's also not good if you have full honey super and they don't have extra space. So you have to that's why you inspect and go, all right, it's 60% full. I'll put another one on. Yeah, at least 50% full, and then put another one on. And that will encourage them to put their honey up there and keep open frames for the queen to lay her eggs. And she will do that pretty aggressively to start out because she wants to build the hive up. if you run into any problems, certainly give me a call, or if you have a queen issue, I may have extra queen or something that I can give you.
Do you ever do your own queens? Do you make your own queens?
No, I've made them in the sense where there's queen cells, and I put them over into another split and let the queen cell develop. But intentionally making queens, no, it's so much work and effort, and just transferring the eggs. I mean, I'm all thumbs. You have this little tool, and you scoop the egg out, which is like a small piece of rice, and then you put it over into a artificial cell, and you do that with dozens of them, and then you put them on these racks, and you get thousands of nurse bees in there, so the nurse bees can put food on the eggs and make them into larvae. It's labor intensive. It's a lot of fun apparently for people that want to experience making a queen, right? But I'd rather pay the $35 for a queen.
Have your hives where you've you've split them, have they been successful?
Yes, they have. I wouldn't say I always do that. What I really try to do is buy a queen and put them in because I like certain types of queens. The queens that I would make here that are made are mutts, right? Because you don't know who they're bred with, so you get just local. And some people swear that that's the best queen because it's generic to the area, and it's wintered, probably overwintered from a hive, and it has all the robustness of the area bees. But I don't know. Like I said, last year I had to buy some from Mount Vernon. He sells queens, and his are all reared up there, and they're sort of mutts because the queens go out and make like 4 or 5 miles away from their hive, right? So you don't know what drones they're getting unless you're in a very controlled area. The big queen manufacturers own tens of thousands of acres out in California or down in Georgia, and so they know sort of which areas their drones are from. So if they say they have a Carnolian, you can pretty much believe it, or a Saskatchewan, or whatever. Sorry. If you need people to, someone to come and look at your hives during the course of the year, give me a call. I don't know if I'm not available. I know a couple of the beekeepers in the close by that might be willing to come look too. Sorry.
I think that would be awesome.
So I read this in a book. Is this a crazy plan for water? They said you take a bucket and you drill holes almost up to the top on the sides, and then you put packing peanuts in them. You know, those little styrofoam packing peanuts? And then you fill it up, and then the bees have a place to land and drink, and it's big enough that you don't have to fill it up every day, as well as rainwater, helps with that too. Does that sound crazy?
I don't know if it works. It isn't crazy. I wouldn't necessarily do it. I just use my bird bath.
I just know I probably won't fill it up every day, so I have to try to come up with something that gives me at least every 3 days.
You could have a neighbor with a swimming pool. That would work.
I do. That's the problem. I don't want them to go to my neighbor's swimming pool.
They will. That is a problem. So that's like you'll see I don't know. It was a really hot item a couple of years ago, where there was a beehive out in California that you could you didn't have to ever harvest the honey. You just turn the a valve. I don't know if you've ever seen these. This guy invented a beehive where the honey, there were some levers you moved, and what it did was it scraped the caps off, right, and it drained the honey down, and it would come out of a valve at the bottom of the beehive. And boy, they were really pricey, and everybody, I hate to say all the fashionistas were going after it. Oh, I can just, get fresh honey from my beehive like milking a cow. It doesn't work that way, but so there's lots of people selling lots of different things, and with beekeeping, you can find so much on Google or on the web, on just searching around, and only believe half of it or even a third of it, because there's like the Fat Bee Man is a good one. There's a guy called Randy Oliver, Scientific Beekeeping. He has a great website. I don't know how much longer he's going to have it up. He's been doing it for 15 years or something. He's a very well known in the industry, but he has throat cancer, so I'm not sure if he's going to be around a long time yet. Then there's a Fat Bee Man. A lot of people pay attention to. There's there's a couple. I'll find a couple names of people that you may search them and see if they have information out there. Both women, one from Michigan and one from South Carolina, and they're extensive experts in beekeeping, but because of this COVID crisis, they both retreated. The one in Michigan, just as volunteer work, with her community, which is really nice. She does volunteer work to help people get groceries and things. And of course, the other one with the university down in South Carolina, I believe it is prohibited from going out of state by the university. So we can't get them as speakers, but really great people. That's why I pay attention to conferences or webinars or seminars, because there is just so much good information from very well-known experts, because you'll get a lot of quacks out there putting their 5-minute video up so that they can get notoriety and fame, and I've watched some of them and I just shake my head sometimes. The other one is to come to, if you're in Cedar Rapids, there's the Cedar Rapids has a beekeeping organization, which is pretty active. And then down in Iowa City in eastern Iowa, it's called East Central Iowa Beekeepers. And they have a meeting every 3 months. And you can meet good contacts and good experienced people to talk to. I think the dues are like $5 a year. At least it was last year. They may raise them, but it's not much. And they meet at the one for Johnson County meets in Corval Library. I encourage you to become members of Iowa Honey Producers because of the Buzz magazine, which is only quarterly now, because we had to cancel all the events for a whole year, so we had no income coming in, and it costs to publish it. But they should be going back to monthly here by the end of this year, but lots of good articles and contacts.
What did you say the name of that is?
Iowa Honey Producers Association. And if you can't do that, at least do the local one, just to make contacts with people and chat them up about your bees. I'm actually not looking forward to this beekeeping season because we're going to create like 5 more hives. It's just, oh, good, I got that much more work. Because, you know, a couple of hives isn't work, but when all of a sudden when you get 20 hives, it becomes a job.
Why are you doing more hives?
Because all my hives are doing so well right now that they're going to be overcrowded by mid-May. So I'm going to have to split them and create more hives, or just let them swarm. And I won't let them swarm. You know. So we'll make more. But I've done it before. It's just, you know, it's a lot of fun in May and June and early July, but in August it's not fun anymore when it's 95 degrees out there. And you got a bee suit on. This is the key. You know, you got a bee suit on and it's 95 degrees and there's 100% humidity, and you're going, why am I doing this? You know, because
Yeah, what do you think the best time of day to check them?
Whenever you can, during the middle to the latter part of the afternoon, all the foragers will be out, so there'll be less bees. If you do it later afternoon or early evening, they're all back, and they tend to become more defensive sooner. So either early in the morning, mid-afternoon, but not too late at night, because and even if it starts to get dark, then they do become defensive because you're disturbing their rest, right? They know it's getting dark out. So I wouldn't recommend late afternoon or after that. But a lot of people, that's all they can do because they work full-time jobs and they get home at 4 or 5 o'clock, and then they go out to the beehives. And that, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. With 1 or 2 hives, it shouldn't be, you know, half hour, 45 minutes on a hive, and you've done it. Versus, you know, 3 hours a day every day gets to you. But my wife loves the honey.
I was going to say, with that many hives, how many pounds of honey do you harvest?
We get, I would say average like 30, 35 pounds of honey per hive. So, you know, 400 or 500 pounds, which isn't that much in comparison to these guys that have hundreds of hives. But I have a neighbor, Joe, who had, I think he had 20 hives and he only survived with 3. So he'll probably be down looking for some bees from me. But he was the New Zealand beekeeper. And they have a special bee down there that produces a honey that has this high antibiotic enzyme in it. I can't think of the name of it right now. And they get $75 a pound for honey down there. Yeah, for that particular honey, because it's only used for medicinal purposes. And he talked about, he said, I'm not supposed to say, but we made like 30,000 pounds of honey a year. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, huge operation. But
That's a lot of honey.
yeah, now I'll give you a true story about a honey manufacturer in Iowa. So when you buy honey at a grocery store, you can be warned. There's a guy somewhere who's a commercial honey guy, right? He isn't a commercial beekeeper. He's a commercial honey guy. He buys honey from local area people. And of course he has semis come in with barrels of honey from everywhere, from Asia, from South America. And they dump it all in one big vat and they mix it and then they sell it. In fact, we were going to have a big seminar there sometime this year. The whole board erupted into fisticuffs almost over it because And it's Iowa honey producers, not Asian honey producers. And how can we go to somebody that is mixing honey from all sources together and then selling it as Iowa honey? So that was kiboshed. But there are manufacturers, that's how they do it. You know, you have to look at the big box stores. They sell hundreds of thousands of gallons of honey, right? So they get it from all over the world. They mix it together. Somebody mixes it together and bottles it. That's why I push local honey producers. You know, find a local person. If you don't have your own, find somebody that's down the street or near that you can trust and get their honey. That's my sales pitch.
So for now, like say if I was going to a local grocery store, are there any local honey producers that you would recommend buying from, like that I can find at like?
Yeah, around this area, the big
Mhm.
one, no, there's some farmer markets.
Mhm.
There's one in Iowa City. There's one in Mount Vernon. There's, I think, one up in Marion. I know there's one up in Marion. So there's people that sell honey there. The local one, I would say, is somebody by the name of Ebert. He sells in a lot of the stores in the area. He's reputable. Remember, if you buy honey, now you're buying last year's honey because we don't harvest honey until August.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Eberts is actually who I usually buy, but I was just curious.
Oh yeah, he's a really nice family. His dad owns a big beekeeping operation out near Des Moines, and then he has one up in Mount Vernon, and he has his hives all over. I see him in different places.
Cool.
So Ebert's okay.
Do you think it matters whether like it's last year's honey? Like as far as does honey go? It doesn't go bad, right?
No, honey doesn't go bad. The reason I mentioned that, I don't know how to say this nicely. If you get to know your honey producer, all right, you can ask them what they do with crystallized honey. All honey crystallizes. It's okay. Like my wife sells it. She wants crystallized honey because she has customers that just want to buy that because it doesn't drip and it's less messy and it's crunchy and it's still honey. And it crystallizes because of the little specks of pollen. All right. Whereas your store-bought cosmetic honey won't crystallize for a long, long, long time because all the pollen's removed. Pollen is a catalyst to start crystallization. But what happens is that a lot of people don't like crystallized honey. So what they do is the local guys will heat it up and remelt it right back into honey. And if you do that over 105 degrees, which some of them do, because it's a business, what you get is you're getting real honey with pollen in it, but all the enzymes have been killed because of the heating. This weekend was talking to a guy at this fly ball tournament who religiously buys local honey because of his allergies. I don't know if it works or not. You know, there's no really good scientific evidence that it prevents allergies, but he swore by it. He talked about where he bought all his honey from. We got in talking about it. Other people swear by it. People give it to their dogs, in fact, for allergies. Expensive treatment for my dogs don't get honey. But it's good supposedly it's good for allergies. I know it's good for infections and on bandages, and it's good for cough syrup because the American Medical Society now recommends it. So you can use that, or you can use store-bought cough syrup.
So it should never go over 105 degrees.
Never, ever.
Okay.
No, so if you're reheating it, to get rid of the crystallization, never over 105. 105 kills all the enzymes. So you really, I'd say 100 degrees, you know.
Yeah. So how do you reheat yours if you're gonna do it?
I don't. Never have.
Okay.
You know,
You just do it
my,
crystallized.
my it's funny, my wife goes, I wish it was crystallized faster because so many people want it.
So
Now,
what about?
the other thing is creamed honey.
Yeah.
People love creamed honey, but creamed honey is actually processed quite a bit and heated quite a bit. So creamed honey is also heated pretty hot. I'm telling you all the secrets of the trade here. But cream honey, it tastes great. It has pollen in it if it's local, but it doesn't have any enzymes because they have to heat it. And it's very smooth and buttery.
So if you were like, for me, like I'm still stuck purchasing honey. Farmers markets obviously are good, but would you like try as a consumer to purchase in bulk in like August and September then, so that you have at least more recent honey?
Well, you could, as long as you don't mind if it crystallizes on you.
Yeah.
Eventually, and it won't. My honey, it takes, I'm going to say, most of the year before it starts crystallizing, but it's all temperature dependent, right? If you keep it in a room that's too cold or it's just too hot, you will expedite the crystallization process. My wife's sister brought a full jar over that she's only had for a couple months, and the whole thing was crystallized, so it's solid, you know. And my wife went, "Oh, great! Here, I'll trade you." And she says, "Well, she had it in a cabinet against the wall that was sort of not insulated well, so all the cold from the winter and the heat, you know, the hot and cold in the cabinet caused it to crystallize a lot faster." So that's how you store it. But crystallized honey is good honey, all right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just crystallized.
Sure.
So I have two questions then. So having it because mine is in the basement too, so it crystallized faster. That's not bad, is it?
No.
Okay, because it's colder, so.
Yeah, it's just that some people do not like crystallized honey.
It. Okay.
I mean, some people, from my wife's perspective, really want it because it spreads easier. It's not so messy, and it's still honey. You know, they use it however they use it on their toast or their muffins.
So, a question then for you: when you're actually getting honey in the summer, I mean, if it has to be pretty warm for the honey to actually flow, right? So, but you still never have it over 100 degrees when you're doing it.
No, never. I have it in the honey room where it gets pretty warm. We have a heater in there, but the room never gets. I'm gonna say if the room gets up to 90 or ish, it's really hot. But you know, that's about it.
Okay.
No, we're pretty careful on that because of the temperature. But,
yes.
And I will have to say a lot of hobbyists and a lot of your smaller local people will be very, very careful with it. Some of your guys that make it into a business where their livelihood depends on it. Obviously, it's a profit thing for them. And it also depends on the farmer's market. Like my wife won't go to the Iowa City farmer's market because she can't sell enough to make a reasonable profit for herself and pay the fee for the farmer's market. All right. Some of the farmer's markets have really high fees. Marion isn't bad, and Mount Vernon isn't bad. Iowa City is pretty expensive. It's like $30 or something a time. You gotta sell a lot of honey for $30.
Solon's is only $5 per time.
Yeah, she goes there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't get a lot of foot traffic though.
No, you don't.
Well, if my hive is successful, that is one of the reasons why I've wanted to do honey or bees. Is I have one one of my kids is with pretty severe eczema. So I plan to treat him next February, starting probably in January, February, you know, and see if it makes a difference. But
Sure.
yeah.
It very well might. It very well might.
Yeah. It's an experiment I'm willing to do.
Sure. It's been used as a medicinal thing for thousands of years. Just like, you know, the opiate crisis, I get a kick out of that. In the sense that opiates have been around since time immemorial, right? That people have experimented, I mean, with them forever. I mean, 1,000 years easily, because they used to have opium dens and things. And we've just manufactured it into pills. And they're, you know, I don't know why some people will use opiates, and then when we get rid of that, they'll use cocaine. When we get rid of that, they'll go to meth. I used to be a cop for a whole bunch of years, so it's like a progression from one drug to the next. And it's not the drug, it's the causation of what's causing people to use it. I have bad knees, so I've used opiates. You know, okay. I have artificial ones now. So when you get, or if you're going to use honey, are you going to use it as a food or as a medicinal, as a surface coating?
I would give him a teaspoon a day starting in probably February, because his allergies really start when we get that first like really big bloom where you can like almost feel the pollen in the air in like late April, and it's just like bam. So I mean, I've done some reading on it. I'll probably do more reading, and this is all assuming that the hive does well. But yeah, probably giving him a teaspoon a day leading up to the spring and see if it makes a difference.
I'd give them more than a teaspoon. I'd give them a tablespoon, but
Right.
depends how much you have.
Well, and he loves it, so he would take 5 tablespoons a day.
My wife swears by it too. She swears by honey.
So how much raw honey do you eat a day?
Me?
Yeah.
Not very much. My wife
Okay.
probably has she has it on her in her breakfast. She probably gives a tablespoon a day for ingestion. Besides what she has, for me, it's I don't use much. It's, you know, I heard a great expression once from this guy. They asked him if he has hundreds of hives, right? And he does pollination. And they asked him if he does honey, and he goes, no, the bees can have the honey. I just do pollination. And they said, why? And he goes, oh, it's messy. You know, so he doesn't have anything to do with it. I agree with him. It's sticky and it's messy and it drips, and you know, I like it. I've used it, but I'm not a big honey person.
So
I love watching the bees, though.
So you said you have a honey room, and that's what you like do all your harvesting and stuff in? Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, I have a room that we do all our honey stuff in, and we store all our frames in it. It was a bedroom that had patio doors to the outside, and a walkout basement type thing. So we just dedicated that room. I have an extractor in there, and a tub for honey. That's where she stores her honey. So it's pretty crowded, but right now it won't be in a couple of weeks when we take all the frames out. But you'll find lots of people have honey rooms or honey storage things. They use, if you get more hives, they really get into it, and they'll build a shed out back or something for their equipment and things. The only thing is never bring your smoker into your house. Dangerous, dangerous. Seriously, you're laughing like that. Always afraid of fire. Because they smolder forever. Even if you put plugs in them, it take a long time before they go out. And you do need a smoker. Yes, Angela.
Oh, I had the thought that I wasn't sure if we talked about honey extractors and like what type of equipment you would recommend for that.
Okay, it's real quick. If you only have a few hives, I would not spend a lot of money on honey extractors. I would scrape the honey and let it drip into a pan, and it will drip eventually. And then when it drips as much as it drips, you can put that back on the hive, and they will clean it up and make it into comb, make the comb back. If you're going to buy an extractor and you only have a few hives, get a really small one that it only spins 2 or maybe 3 frames and does it by hand.
Okay.
And then, of course, the way we do it is our extractor has a motor on it, but my wife will scrape them and put them in there, and she'll leave them a day, and we get, I don't know if she gets at least 4 frames in there. She lets it drip all day, and then that way she doesn't have to spin it as long.
Right. That makes sense.
And then, and it's, honey that comes out will have bee parts in it, will have wax in it, will have a lot of stuff. And what you want to do is you filter it through cheesecloth, or you can buy these strainers, which are like cheesecloth, and you put it over a bucket and dump the honey in there, and it will take all that nonsense out. It leaves the pollen, because you got to make sure you buy the right filter or strainers that are big enough to let the pollen go through, but it takes all the other little bits of wax out and bee parts.
Okay.
And you can find that if you got, I don't recommend necessarily buying from them, but you can see that type of equipment online at Man Lake for extraction equipment. You go, oh, that's what they have, and that's what they have.
Sure. And you said Tyson's carries a lot of bee stuff. Do you think they'd have like the strainer?
Yeah, they do. They put it this way: they carry stuff like in the spring, they'll carry beehives and bees. You'll be able to buy packages from them if you order in advance. I'm sure they probably have extractors of some type later in the year. Just like they have chickens in the spring, and then they have stuff to feed the chickens.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, see a 2-frame plastic extractor, I just looked at it. Now from Man Lake, it's like $230. And then they go up from there, obviously. And then you get into the manual ones, and they're like, if you get a really big 8-frame manual, it's $1,200. So you gotta
if
watch
it's not necessary, I wasn't sure if it was something that we would need to have, but if we're just going to do a couple hives.
Yeah, if you're going to only do a few, we did for the first few years, we just scraped them. You have to buy a scraping tool. It's easier. And you scrape all the covers off, and you let them drip into a pan. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't completely drip, but it does a pretty good job. And then you take that out and put it back in the hive, and if you buy some cheesecloth or one of those strainers, you can strain that honey and make it a little more filtered.
Sure.
So I hope I've helped you all. My email. I sent you an email on books, and then if I get a response from Iowa honey producers, I'll send that out about kids at the field days. Feel free to drop me an email or give me a phone call. Here.
Your number was the 4343 number?
Yeah, I'm giving it to you again.
Oh, I'm gonna say I have a number written here that I'm assuming it's yours.
Yeah, I just sent it out. Obviously, if I don't have you as one of my contacts, I won't answer it, and then just leave a message and I'll call you back, because I don't answer people that I don't know.